There we are. Hi, Tom Ross. I've been a resident of the city for 42 years. You can tell by my white hair that I've been around for a few years. My wife Barbara and I moved here in 1980, settling first in the Fairview subdivision, and since 1986 lived proudly in Old Hills. Professionally, we've also, during that time, had 2 sons raised in the city, and now we are very happy as grandparents of a 13-year-old grandson. My career was involved in Parks and Recreation. I served as an assistant director with the National Park Service, working with community issues. Also worked in nonprofit world, gaining additional management experience. I've been involved in the city for 40 years, serving in a variety of capacities, including the Planning Commission, Charter Commission, Electoral Board, and most recently elected to City Council in the year 2020. So I am seeking re-election to my 2nd term, and proud to be here tonight, and thanks for being here.
Thank you. Our next candidate for City Council is John R. Staley Jr.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is John Staley. I'm on my 3rd term here as City Council, and let me challenge you all for what I hope you'll do this evening. You're looking at everybody who's on the ballot, so take a picture of us. Know who we are. Tell your friends, because there's a lot of people who've already voted who can't name any of us out right now. Welcome to November elections, y'all, right? This is the time to figure out who you want your next team to be. I've enjoyed being your council member. I've enjoyed being most of your 2nd or 3rd favorite council members because I've made a lot of you mad. And that's okay. That's part of the conversation. That's why we're here tonight. You want to find a diverse team up here. You want to find a group of people who come from different backgrounds, but most importantly, a group that want to work towards a common goal. And that's what I hope you hear tonight. I hope you hear our stories, our thoughts about how we'll achieve that together. Because don't forget, this is our city. This is a place Steph and I chose to make our hometown, and that's why we're here this evening. So look forward to your questions, and thank you all for being here.
Our 3rd candidate for City Council is Billy M. Bates.
Good evening, I'm Billy Bates. I'm a lifelong resident, a graduate of Fairfax High School, and a current student at George Mason University. Now, I'd like to address a complaint that Jeff Greenfield made at the last forum about partisanship. I'm being open and clear about my values in this race. I'm in favor of stepping up gun regulation in the city, and I'm in favor of maintaining our strong public schools, and I want to invest in the walkability of the city. And you need to know the values of the people you're voting for, and it's unfortunate that not all the candidates are willing to be open about that. Party affiliation, while not perfect, does tell you something about values. And when a sitting governor raises money for a mayoral candidate behind closed doors, that says something about the candidate and those who support him. We should be asking about their alignment with Youngkin's recent policies. I hope we'll talk more about that tonight, and I hope you'll consider voting for me. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Kate G. Doyle Feingold.
Hi, my name's Kate. My husband and I lived here for almost 10 years. I was a leader of Marines, very proud and blessed to have been able to serve in that position. I'm also an attorney and I have a PhD. I'm going to go ahead and address Billy's statement here because I think it's false. You can't tell someone's character unless you walk up to them, you shake their hand, and you meet them and you speak to them. And you ask them about, what are you going to do about my street and the sidewalks on my street? How do you feel about this development project? What do you think about these issues that actually impact voters in the city? What's happening in this country has been brought down into this local election. Unfortunately, a sample ballot that has now involved city council members. And I'll tell you, this wasn't at all what I planned to speak about, but it needs to be addressed. The way we get to know people and the way that we cross lines and move forward for the residents of the city is by speaking to people. You don't know what people think unless you speak to them. So thank you for coming here and asking questions.
Our next candidate is Joseph D. Harmon.
Well, thank you. I'm going to start out tonight just by saying thanks. Thank you to the Cobbdale Civic Association and Oakley Hills Civic Association for putting this together tonight, and actually for all of you to spend your time to come out here and listen to us talk. I've been on City Council now for 1 term, and I'm finishing up my 1st term, and I'm asking for your vote for a 2nd term on City Council. Just a little bit about me before that, for those of you who don't know. I've been a city resident since 1996, and during that time I've served on both the IDA, the Industrial Development Authority when we had one, PRAB, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and on the Planning Commission. So I've been doing this for a little while, even though I'm finishing up my first term on City Council, because I really care about our city. It is such a very special place to live, and I want to make sure it stays that way, and so I'm asking for your support as we move forward together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Sophie Lim.
Good evening. I'm So Lim, and I'm serving my second term as City Council. I have lived here in the city for 22 years, and my business has been in the city since 1997. I have been very dedicated to my council work for the past 4 years. If I'm re-elected, I will continue to be a passionate, dedicated, and ethical policymaker. I will continue to listen and collaborate with residents, city staff, and my colleagues to make sure our city maintains our unique qualities, physically responsible, environmentally sustainable, and safe for all residents. Tonight, I will answer all questions to the best of my knowledge and as honestly as possible. I hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Jeffrey C. Greenfield. Mr. Greenfield has a long-standing family obligation and is expected to join us later this evening. I will be sure to share with him the questions we asked after the forum, so he knows what questions were already asked and answered. Moving onwards, our next my power just went off. Okay, our next candidate is Anahita and Anna Renner.
Hello, my name is Anna Renner. I'm a mom, foster mom, and a wife of a former Marine. I decided to run because I was hearing over and over again different issues in our city that people's voices weren't being heard. I advocated and fought for my foster kids. I advocated and fought for my son's IEP. I advocated and I fought for my mother when she was in assisted living. And I advocated for her when she was dying in a hospital and the doctors were not listening. I want to run because I want to advocate to you. And I'm a little bit shaking because I come from a country where women's voices are not heard. And today I was asked by one of the organizers and Ms. Reed and Mr. Bates to not attend since I was uncomfortable with the format because last night we were asked to pay to be here. And I didn't think it was appropriate if we don't have a say in the format. I rejected the Democrat Party endorsement because there's multiple candidates here who work for the federal government and could lose their job. And I am running to not be in debt to Catherine Reed's husband, who's the chairman. I'm running to be in debt to you, the voters. That's who I'm running for, not to be in debt to an interest group. On November 8th, vote for number 8.
Our next candidate is Craig S. Zaluski.
Hi, I'm Greg Saluski. Moved into this city in 1998. I currently live in Old Lee Hills with my wife Tanya and our 3 kids. This is my first time running for city council, and I was asked and kind of urged on by friends and some residents to run for the position just because they had some thoughts that they were not being heard by some of the members of the current council and the mayor. And they had certain concerns. Some of those concerns were about development inside the city and the infrastructure improvements and how that was going to impact the cost of living here. Also rising fees and taxes and how that was going to impact affordability. And lastly, some concerns about the city's lack of response to our homeless community and their encampments that are throughout the city. And so I'm hoping to address all those issues with a reasonable, financially responsible, and compassionate solution with obviously community engagement. So I thank you for hearing and hoping to answer. Oh, that's back on. That was on.
Is it good?
That's it. It's on.
Testing again.
Thank you. Next, we have our 2 mayoral candidates. First up is Catherine S. Reed for her 60-second statement.
Thank you very much. I'm Catherine S. Reed. I have lived in the cities for 22 years. My 3 children went to the public schools and graduated from Fairfax High School. I actually landed in this area in 1981 as a sophomore at George Mason University. I moved into the first dorms ever built on the Fairfax campus back in 1981 and was probably one of the first riders of the Q bus, of which I am a tremendous champion. A lot has been said here tonight about why we are all here, and I want you to understand that I'm on your ballot because I care about this community. I care about the people who live here, and at minimum, I want people to have a choice on the ballot of who they want to lead this community. I'm hoping that you will consider me as someone who has demonstrated that I care about the people here and about the community. But what's really important is that you need to understand, as John Staley has said, what everyone truly stands for, what our values really are. Because at the end of the day, it's not just the decisions we make for ourselves, it's the decisions we make that will be 50 years in the future, even when we're not. Thank you.
Our second candidate for City Council Mayor is, I'm sorry, I said the wrong, for City of Fairfax Mayor is Song H.E. Sorry, Mr. Dean, go ahead.
Thank you. It's Sang.
Oh, thank you.
It's okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
good evening, everyone. There's so many serious faces in here. Come on, let's lighten up a little bit. It's a Wednesday night. Let's get wild, right? My name is Sang Yi, and I'm running to serve as your mayor. I'm a husband, a father of 2. My children are right there in the audience smiling at me over there. I've served on city council for 2 terms. I've served in the Navy for 19 years and in civilian government also for about 2 decades. People ask me all the time, why are you doing this? I'm an immigrant. I'm an immigrant who's indebted to this country and the opportunities afforded to my family and me. And through my service, I feel like I'm paying back. And I feel like I have the experience to do this job to serve you and our community. As your mayor, I'm going to focus on affordability for our residents and businesses alike, especially with the uncertain economics ahead. I'll promote sensible development to ensure we preserve our natural environment and our city's charm. And I'll always advocate to make sure that our city students get the best possible education possible by working with our school board and supporting our teachers. I've met a lot of you at the doors, and I hope to meet more of you, and I appreciate your being here and humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We're going to jump right into some questions. As I go through these questions, I will try to cover as many topics as possible. We will rotate the order of who goes first each and every time, starting with their first speeches. So this question is directed both to city council candidates.
Could you just have people stand up? People in the back can't see.
As they talk. Yes, are you okay with that, candidates, as you're able? The question is if you can stand when you talk. Thank you. Yes, certainly. So this question will go both to the city council candidates and also the mayoral candidates. We'll start with the city council candidates, and we'll start with John R. Staley as the first person to answer this question. And we'll rotate through each candidate. The city council frequently considers development and redevelopment projects. What features do you want to see prioritized in future projects?
And we only get 45 seconds. I love it. So we'll try and get there. I think our comprehensive plan is our guide. And as someone who had the privilege of helping us redo that and look at the small area plans, fitting into the larger puzzle piece is what we're really looking for. I'm very proud of the work we've done on this council, having all 5 small area plans underway, which is where we're going to see most of that element that had community engagement. So I think consistency with the plan is one thing that I certainly look for as we move forward. For those of you paying attention, Camp Washington comes up to us very shortly. That's going to set the tone for a lot of new development moving forward. The other part about plans is they take a long time. Some of the first projects I voted on were 2010 dollars. That's a long time ago. And so I think having that long range lens on it is also very important. So those are the things that I look for, is that consistency with our plan, in particular the small area plans. Thanks.
Billy M. Bates, your turn.
So first off, I want to see greater walkability in new developments than what we've seen in the past. A lot of the older developments in the city are very car-centric, mostly parking lot, and there are traffic bottlenecks left and right, which I'm sure you've all experienced. Not a lot of through streets, not a very effective street grid, and that's something that I think needs to change. And we also need more affordable housing. We'd be less skeptical when nonprofit organizations especially volunteer to come in and build a significant amount of affordable housing and new developments. And so affordable housing, that's really a very intersectional issue that is centered on development, and it's something that we need to consider as we consider new developments and negotiate even with developers on. Also environmental sustainability, negotiating for LEED certification, LEED silver at least, I'd say in most cases, and more efficient development in general, more structured parking, more retail frontage on the street rather than on the parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate Doyle-Feingold.
Hi, the first thing I want to make sure to focus on across all developments is engaging all the residents at the very beginning. So when the developers first come to city council and mayor, instead of having those discussions happen without your knowledge, make sure that residents are engaged. I want to prioritize neighboring residents and their concerns about the development, and also environmental concerns. We have to start paying attention to the impact that we're having on the trees and green spaces and waterways, and that really has to be a priority. Those are the three things that, no matter where the development is, we really have to focus on. And I think specifically in the downtown area, we really need to look to revitalize the commercial properties in that area to make downtown Fairfax City more of a place that people want to walk to and go to regularly.
Thank you. Joseph Harmon.
I love this question because it gets to the root of what is the main things that the city council deals with. You know, how are we going to move forward into the future together? In terms of the specific question about features, I would say I would answer that question really by saying that we have to get to a place where we find ourselves being able to build destinations. 1970s strip malls aren't going to get it, folks. We have to figure out how to get people out of their house and not clicking on Amazon.com in order to buy what it is that they want to buy. And we do that by building destinations. But I will add this one point. One thing that I always try to think about when I'm going through the process of making a decision on these things is, what do the people who live there want? The neighborhoods that are impacted by whatever the development is, we need to start by asking them and asking you. And that's what I try to do before I come to a well-balanced decision on these development projects, is figuring out what's best for the community who lives there. Thank you.
Thank you. Solon.
Thank you. I have to agree with Council Member Staley. I'm sorry, not a council member. I'm thinking I'm council meeting. Candidate John Staley. No, we do have a small area plan and plan. First of all, we are making the small area plan. I believe that we have to be more conscientious of what sort of a plan that we set in place. Once we set the plan in place, then the developers comes and ask for what we had set in the place, right? So make sure that when we are working on a small area plan, we're more conscientious of density, height, walkability, and also environmentally safe, sustainable buildings, as well as what the neighbors want, right? Some developments when we're working on, the neighbors are definitely opposed to projects, so we have to listen to the residents and make sure that what we do makes our residents that currently live here in the city are happy or can deal with. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna Renner.
My concern when it comes to development is we're looking at the wrong parts of our city. If it's more about business development or housing development, there are parts of our city that if we revitalize, like the Old Town area, then not only will it be a destination for people who don't live in our city to spend money, but a destination people want to live and walk, shop, and dine. If you want to take more cars off the road, the best place and the easiest place is somewhere where people are already thinking of a destination. I think we need to work not just with the planning department, with the planning commission, but also with our business community to help bring more businesses in so people would want to revitalize our town area. Lastly, I want to also think about the residents and speak up. I want to think about the residents and how it impacts them. Because do no harm to current residents is one of the most important things we need to think about. I don't know which mic to go to.
This is fun.
And when it comes to connectivity, I just don't want to be in a position where we're cutting through neighborhoods and putting the lives of little children who are playing, our vision impaired residents and our elderly residents who may not be quick to react if a car is going through 40 miles an hour in a residential neighborhood because they want to cut through our city. Just want to think about all the different residents in our city with development.
Thank you. Craig Saluski?
First of all, I want to commend the current council. I think they have actually done a very good job with a long-term plan of how they see the city moving forward. And I agree with a lot of things that they're looking for to redevelopment of the city centers throughout the city. So I think they've done a good job there. Where they have fallen short, possibly, is to take Old Lee Highway right now. That project has skyrocketed in cost from what it first was planned for. I think it's currently $10 million of unfunded as their initial plan. I don't think that they're fully looking forward on and working with the developers to actually move forward with the construction costs to keep them in place and keep those costs low. My current job, I work for a large realty trust and developer, and I can see where it's possible that they were not thinking out the cost of the contingencies throughout. Lastly, about when we were talking about listening to the citizens, I've heard from several citizens about different paths they're going through to Route 50, things like that. I like walkability, but I do think we really need to address and listen to the citizens that these plans are going to directly impact and make sure that they're behind it fully.
Thank you. And our last city council member to answer this question, Tom Ross.
Last but not least, I hope, we are living in unprecedented times. In Northern Virginia, that's on, but is it on? Thank you. Northern Virginia makes up 42% of the Virginia economy. Think about that for a moment. What's going on around us? It means we are facing incredible, significant growth pressures for this community. We must find the balance between economic growth, which fuels our future, pays for our costs of kids going to schools, pays for the incredible services we receive, and a balance between that and protecting the areas we all love and respect. We must find places for that economic growth to fit and allow for activity to go on in those areas while at the same time protecting and sustaining our neighborhoods. We can do both. We have an opportunity now in the next few years to attract the kind of economic growth that will fuel our future, provide opportunities for our kids and our grandchildren, and we must find that balance. And we must engage our citizens in all those decisions we make. Thank you.
Thank you. And for our mayoral candidates, we're going to start with Sang Yi this time. And we are still on the question of what features do you want to see prioritized in future projects?
All right, well, I think for features, the top things for me is that we want to preserve the charm of our city. I want to preserve the culture of our city. I think that we have a beautiful town, and we need to make sure that we respect that. I also would like to make sure that the features include safety, whether it's for pedestrian or traffic and vehicular traffic safety. We also want to make sure that any development we do is also an economic additive to us, whether that's revitalizing our commercial areas or even in housing and how that fits in. The most important thing is whenever we do any of these development projects, and I think someone had mentioned this earlier, we need to seek input of our residents. We need to make sure that that happens on the front end and not on the back end. That would help us get that diversity of housing that we're all seeking. Because, for instance, we don't have that much more senior housing in the city. Where are people supposed to age in place? These are other features we want to think about. And when you think about all those things, then you'll think about what kind of art we'll have downtown and who that serves and who that attracts. And that makes a much fuller discussion for us to have fruitful development here.
Thank you. And Catherine Reed.
Thank you. So I think our comprehensive plan is a really good guide, and one of the things that it really emphasizes is mixed-use development facing sidewalks. And that's really a key because we want people to walk our 6.2 square miles. We've been a very car-centric transportation-centric city, and yet I think people are moving to our small community because they want both a house and a yard in our picturesque neighborhoods, and also the ability to walk to experiences, to restaurants, to shops, to our parks. And so investing in our sidewalks is important because we're asking developers to build to sidewalks so that we have a dynamic and vibrant city through which people can walk. I think that we do have to ask ourselves about the generational differences too. The new residents moving in with young families who are younger, and people who've lived here for 50 years and what they'd like to see in the city. And you're not necessarily going to come to a consensus on every project, but I agree people should be included from the very beginning.
Thank you, candidates. Moving on to our next question, still being addressed to both city council candidates and mayoral candidates. This time the questions will start with Billy Bates. There we go. Tell us 3 areas of the city budget that you like and why. Tell us 3 areas of the city budget that you would like to change and why.
So, the 3 areas of the city budget I like right now, public works, law enforcement, and fire. Public works, I think we're seeing a lot of great projects in the city, including the new sidewalk that was recently put in on Roberts Road that we've been waiting for, you know, literally all my dad's life. And the police as well, I think they've done a very good job, and they're actually already a fairly small portion of the city budget relative to other jurisdictions, and I think they've done a lot with what they have, and you know, we ought to just not go trying to change a good thing. And the fire, public safety, definitely really respect what they do, and they very quick response times compared to the rest of the region. And thank you.
Next to answer the question is Kate Doyle Feingold.
Well, as a mother of 2 kids who go to public schools in the city, first area of the city budget that I think is important, both for people who have kids and those who don't, are the city schools. And we have wonderful schools and wonderful teachers who really give their all to our kids. And so that's something I really have to focus on. I think that moving forward, we're starting to see an increase in crime in the city and surrounding areas. And so I think we are going to need to look more closely at the police department and the budget that we give them to address those issues in the city. That's my area of study. I have a PhD in criminology, law, and society, and looked at evidence-based ways to decrease crime and improve effective policing. The areas of the budget that I'm not a fan of are, right now the projects that we're talking about in the future that the city's gonna have to borrow money for. Projects that are not must-haves, like community centers, and as we are turning into a possible recession in the country, I think we need to really look at the must-haves and cut down on the things that we're borrowing money for that are not necessary for people in the city.
Thank you. Next up we have Joseph Harmon.
Yes, so the 3 areas that I like, I'm going to start off by saying is probably our capital improvement program. We have now in the city of Fairfax probably one of the best comprehensive CIPs that we've had in a long time. As I mentioned earlier, I was on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and it was not funny, but interesting how we would put projects forward from Parks and Recreation, and they didn't always get funded in the years in which we allocated them to be from the City Council, and it magically would get pushed out year after year after year. And so I think now we are now doing a better job of that, of being able to say, okay, this project needs to get done in this year, and finding ways in which that's going to happen. On the not so like side, I'm going to have to say schools, to tell you the truth, because schools is such a large part of our budget, and it is driven not by us directly, but by our contract with Fairfax County. And there's a lot of reasons for why that is the way it is, but it is my most unpopular part of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have So Lim.
Thank you. I'd like to talk about where I think that we need to invest more in here in the city. I think first of all, it's the planning and development department. You know, we have many projects here in the city, as well as your residents that are working on building additions, decks, planting trees, and we have short of staff. We have short of staff to come out to inspect your property, to approve a deck improvement or build out in your homes. It takes 4 to 5 weeks on an average, and that's just way too long. Even just to plant a tree or remove a tree, it takes 4 to 5 weeks. So I would like to invest more of our money, hiring more staff there, so that it will improve our lives here. And second of all, I'd like to invest more money in the economic development office. I think that we need to bring in some creative ideas, unique business here in the city to make our city more of a destination spot. So I would like to invest more of our money in the economic development. And lastly, I'd like to spend more money on our school facilities. We have school facilities that needs improvements. So it's safety as well as the classroom size, needed classrooms. We need to spend more of our dollars to actually improve our school facility. Thank you.
Next up, we have Anna Renner.
As we're seeing, getting 6 of these in 45 seconds is near impossible. So I'm just going to tell you what's important to me. I'm grateful that we're funding our schools. I think we need to look at the funding and make sure that our schools and our teachers have enough for the coming years. As we're seeing more development pop up, we're going to have more students. My son is going to be going to our schools in a few years, and I think right now the next council needs to think about how the schools are going to get funded with all these new developments so we don't have overcrowding at our schools. The other thing is I totally agree. I've been knocking on doors and a lot of people say, I just wanted to put an addition. I just wanted to fix something that would raise my property values, that would raise my neighbor's property values, but they're having a hard time. So we need to look at areas where we can improve as a city so the residents can improve their homes and make all of us succeed. And lastly, I just want to focus on making sure that we can recruit and bring more businesses and make the city more profitable in that way.
Thank you. Craig Saluski is next.
One of the nice things about going near the end of this is that, or maybe it's a bad thing, you've already heard some of the answers and I'm going to repeat some of them. So I'm actually happy with with our schools and our budget on that, and I think it is somewhat of a can of worms to get involved into it. But for the most part, I'm happy where we're spending. I'm also upset, or I've heard a lot of different stories about the permit and planning, getting people out, and a lot of our front-facing side of our government doesn't seem to be functioning well. Again, the stories of people that need a deck built, and it just takes a long time to get someone to come out and look. With regards to the police budget, it would be something I'd like to look at. I do think that that would be something I'd look to increase. We do seem to have a growing city. We're going to need more police officers. They're going to need new equipment, and then possibly even more officers, just in the sense of for different parts of enforcement.
Thank you. Next up is Tom Ross.
Yes, I would like to focus on technology and old people. We've all had that problem. I look at our investment in our budget that we spend money on as investments. They're investments in our future and in our current needs. I think the biggest needs right now are continuation of our public safety. When you call up for a fire truck or a medical emergency, you want them there instantaneously, and we have exceptional services. Those are things I would not nickel and dime. We need to protect those. We need to protect our public schools and our contract with the county. It takes about 40% of our budget. That seems like an excessive amount, but these are our young people that are our future residents and our future generations that we need to educate, protect, and make sure they are safe. The third is an area I would like to see us continue to increase, the importance of our parks and recreation. They are the lifeblood of our community. They connect us in so many ways. Our special events, our activities, our festivals, but more importantly, having access to green spaces where our kids can play, where adults can go and recreate. We need to continue these. We need to look at these investments not only in today, but in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, for this question from City Council candidates, John Staley.
Well, thank you very much. I want to start with the school's budget, and I want to commend Chair Pitches and the school board for the great work that they do. The partnership we have with our school board is fantastic. If you take a look at what we're able to do with the county, I'm wholeheartedly supportive of that. So thank you, Chair, for all the work that you do. And school board members, you got a big task coming ahead as we look at renovations in the future. That's why you're here, and it's critically important. I want to touch on two areas you haven't heard mentioned up here. Number one, what keeps me up at night? Healthcare costs. Right? We are the chair of the board of about 400 people who have health care that we provide to them. That's a critical element, and how we fix it as a nation impacts our budget and our bottom line. The second is mental health. If you didn't get a chance to look what we did last council meeting, I'm incredibly proud of the work we're doing for Response Task Force now to think about that issue. 988 is for real. I said it on camera, I'll say it again. 988, it deserves as much investment as 911, because mental health is health. Those are the areas that keep me up at night. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the same question going to our mayoral candidates, and this time Catherine Reed, both first.
Thank you. I just want to echo what many people have said about the school budget. I do think we have a wonderful contract with Fairfax County Public Schools, especially around special education. Students with special education needs is very expensive. As an independent school system, we would be hard-pressed to deliver the level of services that we get. I think we also need to look at renovating our school buildings. That's really important, and we need to prepare going forward to have that in our budget. I think one of the greatest things in the city is our trash pickup. The county is struggling, those people are suffering out there, and we have one of the best services ever in the city with our trash pickup. They do an absolutely wonderful job. With law enforcement, I was just down at Cameron's Coffee and Chocolates for Coffee with a Cop this morning, talking to these frontline police officers, and they're down 6 people. And if we had better health response, behavioral health, mental health response, we wouldn't have police answering calls that should be better answered by mental health professionals. So I am also really behind this 988 initiative here in the city, because I think it would help offset some of the pressure that we have currently on our law enforcement in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last person to answer this question is Sang Yi.
So I think public safety, schools, and our roads and public works is the most important things in the functions of our city government. Those are the bare minimums here. And public safety, we talked a lot about mental health. I was very proud to be supportive, and I think we had unanimous support from the council of including mental health experts and specialists with our police officers, so we don't train our police officers for those types of matters. For our schools, I think that our budget with our schools is important, of course. That's a primary function of our government, and what we have along with our school services agreement is a key factor. That being said, the way our budgeting process is that the timing is really unfortunate for our city and when we get our bill from the county. And I'd love to see efforts to improve that. I don't quite know. I'm going to be a weird politician and say I don't know the answer to that one, but I've seen it for 4 years and it's a challenge. It affects so much of our budget, but the timing of it impacts us. So Chair Pitches is laughing because she's like, I have the answer. That's why she's the chairman of the school board. But the other parts of our things that I would like to improve is some of our EDO budget and our parks budget, because we see a lot of our trails and our trees, and that's really a key part of our city, and we need to invest in those. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will go to the mayoral candidates. What qualifications professionally do you feel you have prepared you for the office of mayor? And we'll start this question with Sang Yi.
Okay, well, after 4.5 years on the city council and about 2 decades worth of service in the federal government, military and civilian, I think I've learned to work with a lot of different types of people. And I have to tell you, this isn't a professional expertise, but being an immigrant child who came to the United States at the age of 4 and didn't speak any English at the beginning, it was really hard. And it kind of helped me learn how to deal with people in the military too, because when you're in the military, you deal with people from all over, and all people of different backgrounds and cultures. And I think that's what we need here. We have an incredible city here where almost 30% of people are actually foreign born in our city. You look at the diversity, and you even look at this council we have right now and the diversity there, you need to be able to work with a variety of people. In my professional experience, whether it's in law, whether it's in policy, whether it's in government, or in military and leadership, I think all bode really well for me to be able to handle those responsibilities and duties as our mayor.
Thank you. And the next person to answer this is Catherine Reed.
Thank you. So my degree from George Mason University is in government and politics in 1984, true. I have had a variety of leadership positions. I've worked in corporate America. I have run corporate programs. I've worked in human resources. I've also done a lot of board service with Equality Virginia, with Grand Involve, with Bright Paths for 9 years. And working with a board, working with an executive director is remarkably like working with an organization like city government. And I think the leadership qualities are creating an environment where people work together collaboratively, where there is a safe space for people to have discussions and be respected even when they dissent. I think it's important to be the voice of the city and be the person who can work between the council and the city staff and our city manager. And I think those are basic skill sets that I have developed over the last 50 years. 50 years, I'm not that old. But I bring a life experience working with people. And I think the fact that I care about this city is just as important as those skills that I bring.
Thank you, mayoral candidates. Many people had questions about qualifications professionally, so this same question now goes to our city council candidates, and we're going to start with Kate Doyle Feingold. What qualifications professionally do you feel you have that have prepared you for the office of city council?
Okay, so I'm a military brat. I'm a 13th generation veteran, and I grew up all over the country and world, all different communities, as amazing as the city of Fairfax. I moved to New York City myself when I was 17 years old. My parents still lived in Germany. I lived a couple blocks away from the World Trade Center on the morning of 9/11. I was in my apartment. Then I moved down to DC and I went to law school. I served in the Marine Corps for 8 years. I used my GI Bill to get a PhD in criminology, law, and society from George Mason. I'm a mom of 2 girls. I'm passionate about volunteering in the community and giving back, serving pro bono hours as a lawyer and in other ways, and whatever I can do for my neighbors. And in my professional jobs, I've written policies, helped draft federal regulations, a lot of boring stuff, a lot of interesting stuff, criminal law things. But I think the reality is we just have to be able to work together and have to go out and talk to people and listen to people. And I'm willing and excited to do that.
Joseph Harmon, your turn, same question.
All right, well, thank you very much. I think I mentioned earlier, but it bears repeating, that I've been involved in boards and commissions here in Fairfax City for quite some time. Again, I worked on the Industrial Development Authority when there was such a thing. I was on the Parks and Recreation Board for 8 years, 4 of which I chaired that board. And then I was on the Planning Commission for 6 years. During that time, we actually wrote the comprehensive plan that the city has and uses today. So that's my work here on city council, and for the city rather, and also I've served on the city council for 1 term. In my professional life, I'm an IT project manager, and so getting projects done is actually what I do every day. And that means being able to work with people who have different opinions than my own. And I kind of celebrate that because one of the things that I've learned even in the city council is that when people don't agree with me directly, that's okay. I might actually learn something in the process, and we get to it at a collaborative point later on down the road. So that's kind of a little bit about my background and why I'm qualified for another term on your city council if you choose to. I would like to. Thank you.
Thank you. So Lynn?
Thank you. Well, I've been serving for the last 4.5 years as a city council. So I've learned a lot, and I know what it takes. Professionally, I own and operate an insurance agency, and my insurance agency work is very similar to council work, actually. You know, when do you ever talk to your insurance agent? You only talk to them when you got problems, right? So it's very similar. And I've been doing it very well. I've been in the insurance business for 34 years. I represent over 10,000 clients. I have the fiduciary responsibility to keep their policies and premiums, represent them with the companies that I endorse various different insurance companies. So I believe that I'm very experienced working with different people with their problems. Even if it's a $50 a month or a 6-month increase in their premium, it's never a small problem. Whatever the problem is, I'm there to help my clients, and I will be doing the same thing with my residents. Whatever the small problem it may come up, I'll be there to listen to you, collaborate with the city staff to get your problem solved. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Jeffrey Greenfield, who the question posed is, what qualifications make you qualified for city council?
Thank you. Good evening. Sounds like that's not going to work either. I've been involved in the city of Fairfax for over 30 years, whether it was starting out on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, moving to serve as the vice chair of the 2020 Commission, serving with Dale Espina, serving on the Economic Development Subcommittee, and then eventually getting elected to City Council. I've been off of council for the last 4 years, but I've continued to be involved, raising money for charities, helping to address child hunger here in the city of Fairfax. I think experience matters. I hope you'll remember that when you go to the polls in election day.
Thank you. Honor Renner?
When it comes to experience, I decided when I grew up low income, and so I decided that I wanted to try a little of everything. So in my 20s, I mostly worked for nonprofits because there was nonprofits that helped us have a roof over our head, to have food on our plates when I was a little kid. And then when my friend asked me, hey, can you help my business grow? We're going to Latin America. And I said, sure, I speak Spanish, let's do this. So I got to travel to different parts of the world speaking Spanish, and it's not like that anymore, but I tried to expand his business and listening to his needs. And in my 30s, when my husband and I got married, I decided to put away the suitcase and we decided to start our family. And I went back to working in retail, where in retail, when you're doing sales, you listen to people. And when I decided to become a foster parent, and now that I'm a mom, all you do is listen to other people and put their needs ahead of your own. And as city council person, I will be fortunate if you will let me put your needs ahead of mine.
Craig Saluski.
Well, I think the two qualifications that I've worked on over my professional career, I started my career as an entrepreneur, and I created a couple restaurants, and also went into residential real estate as a developer and appraiser and flipping homes before flipping homes was a thing. But that started off, and that's where I kind of understand small business people. And being able to work with our businesses here at the city, I think that qualification of understanding what they're going through to run their businesses or to start up a new business in the city, what that's going to take. For the last 15 years, I've been working with a realty trust, handling basically maintenance and restoration of existing buildings. And through that, I'm working with lots of different teams for that, from the executive level all the way down to labor. I basically work on all the union negotiations to get that done. So it's working with all sorts of different people. So being able to collaborate as a team and to get something done. And so that's why I think all those will work into qualifications to work on the city council in the city.
Thank you. Tom Ross?
My professional experience includes more than 35 years as a manager at the federal level and as a nonprofit executive. I retired from the National Park Service as an assistant director overseeing national programs in conservation and recreation. More importantly, I've spent my entire career living in the city of Fairfax, more than 42 years involved, whether it be on a local bikeway committee when I first moved here with John Mason, to the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board with Jeff, serving on the Planning Commission, serving on the 2020 Commission. You name it, I've almost been in every board and commission in the city, and I've honored that service. I believe in our community, and I believe in the service to our community. I've been on city council for 2 years and been involved in a variety of activities while on council. I'm a member of Rotary. I'm the only council member who is a member of the Fairfax Chamber of Commerce. because I think it's important we connect with those outside groups as well as the groups that we serve. So I am experienced. Jeff stole my party line, which is experience matters. I'll put my experience against his any day, but with great credit to my involvement in the city. Thank you.
John Staley.
I had the privilege of being the president of the Virginia Municipal League this past year, and I got to travel across the Commonwealth, and connections, I think, are what really matter. But what really surprised me was an interview I gave. So I had a conversation with the reporter, and then he sent me the transcript back, and he said, this is the article I want to put. And he described me as the following. Talking to John is like talking to a tea kettle that's about to boil over. And that's what I bring. I'm your energy guy, right? That's what you need up here. You need people of diverse backgrounds who can work together and bring the energy and enthusiasm and do that. That's who I am. That's who I want to keep being. That's what I've been the past 6 years. Nothing prepares you for this job. Nothing prepared us for COVID, but we worked it together with the different skill sets and those backgrounds are there. So I want to keep bringing the energy for you. Thanks.
And Billy Bates.
So to John's point about diversity on the council, first off, I believe I'm the only candidate who has a background in physics or math or engineering or computer science. I've taken a couple classes in each of those, and studying computational physics at GMU is my concentration. And I feel like more of a higher math quantitative background would be a unique perspective I could bring to the council, a unique way of looking at different issues in the city. Also, of course, my age. I'd be the youngest of this group, I believe the youngest in history. And I've served on the ESC as the high school liaison in the past as well. So definitely environmental sustainability perspective. Now, just real quick, I want to address what Anna said earlier. No one told her that we don't want her to attend this event. We informed her that if she does not agree with the format, she doesn't have to attend because she did not want us to answer questions in front of the audience. And, I can show you the emails if you'd like to see them. Thank you.
Okay, moving onwards, our next question is, what are your innovative and cost-effective ideas for addressing traffic issues and growth in the city? This question goes to City Council and mayoral candidates, and we're going to start with Joseph Harmon.
Lucky. Innovative and cost-effective. Well, we've tried a couple of things already here in the city. I mean, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the work that we did on university. And there is a diversity of thought on that, to put it lightly. There have been other things that we've attempted to do in terms of, I know several years ago, actually, when Mayor Lederer was still the mayor, we put speed bumps in on Dwight Avenue. And that has played out interestingly over time as well. But I think one of the things that people talk about a lot is cut-through traffic and speeds in neighborhoods. And to my way of thinking, while it's not an easy fix, it's one that we can consider. And that is when you narrow the amount of space that's available for people to drive through, people naturally slow down. And so there are places where we can consider perhaps the building of sidewalks in particular locations where we can slow down traffic just by narrowing the amount of space that people have to drive through. Thank you very much.
Soli?
Thank you. You know, when I canvassed during campaign season, I want to say the number one concern that most residents have is traffic and the cut-throughs and the speeding traffic that goes by their homes. And I agree with them. When I'm walking, I don't feel safe, with the speeding cars that's going by. So creative ideas. I think that some of the residents, some of the homeowners associations could possibly have gates like the Farcroft does. Farcroft, when we have a gate there, that prevents the cut-throughs. And the one thing I'd like to point out, the saving money, right? The Oldley Highway, somebody also mentioned earlier. Oldley Highway project is a great concept, I think. But when we found out that $10 million was gonna cost that we didn't account for, I just thought that was just physically irresponsible to go ahead with that project when we don't know where the money's coming from. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't run my household or my business that way. Go ahead and spend the money not knowing where the money's coming from. Thank you.
Jeff Greenfield?
Thank you. You know, the city's done a lot of what I would call probably traffic anchoring devices all over the city, right? We think it works. It makes sense to do speed humps. We try to do stop signs. We put them in, and then folks get frustrated over somebody goes over a speed hump and they step on the gas and spin the tires and create noise, etc. You know, during COVID, we found that everybody off the street, right, to include law enforcement. I think as we talk to folks around the community, you hear time and time again, it sure would be nice to see a police officer in our neighborhood. It would be nice to see them, if nothing else, driving around, perhaps enforcing traffic laws, perhaps enforcing running stop signs. You know, it's a continual exercise. We've done some things that, you know, the city, have done some things that worked and some things that didn't work. And I think, you know, good leadership is when we're able to recognize that, that wasn't quite what we thought, maybe we need to restart and rethink. And I would say University Drive is one of those areas where to this day you can't not put two cars against one another head on in trying to work chicanes. Thank you.
Anna Renner?
It might not be innovative or cost effective, but it's the most obvious. Start with you first. Because, for example, the Old Lee project that right now the city might be footing a bill of additional $10 million, the public hearing where you all get to speak is not until 2024. So gosh knows how much more they're gonna be asking by then. So those are the things that we need to consider, because if we talk to the residents and they go, well, we maybe want sidewalk improvement, maybe these are the spots that we see are blind spots, we can work with them, because who knows Old Lee better than the people who are actually driving on it, and not the ones who are cutting through, the ones who are driving on it and the ones who live on it. So instead of telling the residents, this is how we're going to improve, let's ask them. Because for example, in some neighborhoods, just people parking on the street, I can see like the cars slowing down when they're getting close to my portion of the neighborhood. So those are, and the last part is, I will tell you later, next question.
Craig Saluski.
So I do think that the idea of looking and talking with the residents, we actually may get a lot of good ideas, ones that we don't come up with, and some of the consultants that we probably hire. We probably might get better ideas even from our residents themselves. So I like the idea of opening it up to them first. But about our some of the problems that we have, I like the idea of a grid system that we talked about before, actually opening up some of our major boulevards and trying to push traffic through there first and keeping it off the side streets as much as possible. But I do think that is a University Drive where the street cuts in. I personally hate that spot of the road, and not that it slows me down, but it does make for a problem. The traffic circles, things like that, roundabouts are not a bad idea, but I'd like to see us at least even open it up to more so than just inside our city to come up with ideas.
Tom Ross?
The reality of our traffic is not city driven. It's driven by people coming through our community every day, passing through, going to work either west of here or going east. We have a traffic problem. There is no question about that. And I think the improvements we are talking about will improve those. We've heard the figure of $10 million overage in Old Lee Highway. That is not correct. What we have is a huge, important project which have been supported for many years to improve Old Lee Highway into a true intermodal corridor, not just for automobiles, for safe walking, for safe biking, for safe other means of getting around. We can do those sorts of improvements. We may not be able to stop the issue of traffic congestion, but we can improve it by encouraging more walking, more biking, more use of the free Q bus system in our community. We are an urbanizing region That's one of the aspects of an urbanizing region is transportation. And we need to deal with that and looking to the future for future solutions. Thank you.
John Staley?
So I'm going to talk about an innovative area. And so I was very pleased that we were able to bring the autonomous vehicle that some of our regional partners are having to City Hall and have a real conversation about what does the future of that look like. Where I see it, I see it on University. I see it taking from the Flats to George Mason. Is that going to solve all our problems? No. Is it going to happen in my lifetime? I think it will. And I think being prepared for those over-the-horizon opportunities to really change the way we do business is where we can be innovative. But the reality is this, we got a lot of people around us, and making sure we handle the growth and where cars go is really important. That's why I was so proud of the work the council did to make sure that the bridge over Germantown Road over 66 is 4 lanes. That's a transformational opportunity to make sure there's places for cars to go. That's long-range planning and hard work with connections with the county and at the state level. And we're gonna need more of that to create the space we need for the future.
Kate Doyle Feingold? Oh, sorry, I missed one. Billy Bates. Sorry, Billy, that was unintentional.
So, first off, I'd like to echo the comments that Tom Ross and John Staley made. Sometimes we need to experience some short-term inconveniences and in order to make investments in long-term improvement in traffic and transportation and leave a better place for our children and future residents. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We already have Falls Church, Arlington. They've made improvements that have worked for them, and we need to look toward their examples. They've prioritized walkability and transit-oriented development and creating more of a grid of streets where we don't see the massive bottlenecks that we have in Old Town Fairfax, massive blocks with no through streets where there should be through streets. And we need to prioritize looking toward more Q-bus service. Thank you.
And Kate Doyle Feingold.
I like cost-effective solutions. I walk my kids to school every morning that I can. We live near Ratcliffe Park, but we walk all the way to Daniels Run, across Main Street behind the Ace Hardware. One of the first things I think that would cost nothing and would make walking so much easier and pleasant and safer for kids in the city is when you push a button, the light for the pedestrian should change within 60 seconds. You shouldn't stand there for 5 or 10 minutes. You know, I've seen little kids who are waiting to get to school and they don't want to wait for the light and then they cross and stand in the median. It's not safe. It's simple, it's free. I think as long as we are actually enforcing the tickets and making money back from cameras, I think cameras for speeding and running red lights are a great idea. A lot of cities all over the world use it. It also reduces the work that our police force has to do on simple, basic traffic enforcement. I think also we got to look to the residents who live there because they can tell you what the minutia, what the little problems are in their neighborhoods, and we can come up with really effective solutions.
Thank you. And then the last question, still same one, going to our mayoral candidates. What are your innovative and cost-effective ideas for addressing traffic and growth? This first one goes to Catherine Reed.
Lots of great ideas here, and I agree. I think autonomous vehicles are going to change the future of individual car ownership. Well, whether that's in 10 years or 20 years, I don't know. But we can't plan everything in the city around the flow of traffic, simply making sure the cars move and making that a priority. If you look at the Mosaic and Fairfax Corner, which a lot of us go to, it's built around pedestrian walkability, and that's why it's thriving and it's a vibrant economic experience. But that relies also on high-density housing. And I think when we talk about the comprehensive plan and mixed-use development, that's what we're actually talking about. We are talking about building what in Europe is Europe. I mean, if you go to European cities, that's the way they're built. You have residents upstairs, and basically they've recreated that in Mosaic and Fairfax Corner. We do need street grids here. But I think we need to really prioritize pedestrian walkability, and I think that is really tied to the economic development of the city as well.
And Sang Yi.
Thank you. I think the most cost-effective way to address traffic is not to do any more harm. Don't create more density in places that's going to create more traffic. I mean, most of us go to Mosaic, but we drive there. Most of these places we talk about, people drive here, and people will drive here too. But we don't have to do more self-inflicted harm by creating high-density projects where we don't have the infrastructure to support it. So that's important to me. The second thing is that when we talk about innovation, I recently met with a company called Fidelity that was it's kind of an incubator company out of George Mason. And these are important partnerships. They're trying to figure out how to do wireless light timing, street light timing. And if they do that with wireless street light timing, it might impact our efficiency of these times, the time lights. And I think that's the kind of programs and that's the kind of partnerships we should be seeking out. The other thing is that for speeding, we have a huge speeding problem, especially through our neighborhoods. Our neighborhood streets are turning into highways and freeways instead of neighborhood streets where kids can ride their bike and run around and play around in the cul-de-sac. And that's something that we really need to address with more enforcement. And it needs to be more, it has to be more commonplace where the police presence is known.
Thank you, candidates. It is now 8:20 and we have a very large panel. We do want to allow time for closing remarks and also time for you to ask questions separately after the forum to the candidates if you have continued questions. So at this time, I would like to give each of our candidates 90 seconds for closing remarks. We do ask that you keep your comments professional and respectful within each other so that we can have a professional dialogue. And we also ask the spectators to also remain professional and respectful. We're going to go through, we'll start with our mayoral candidates and start with Solim. I'm sorry, I said the wrong one. It's a little late. I've been working for a long day. Sorry, our city council candidates. So we'll start with Solim. Sorry about that.
Thank you. I thought I was running for mayor for a second.
You're welcome.
As I said earlier, my professional experience has been in insurance. And as I said, in my career, the most important thing is to listen. And I have to say, I have great work ethic, and I'm a good listener. So I will make sure when we have issues, or when you have issues, I'll be there to listen to you and listen very carefully, and to make sure that I can collaborate with you, stakeholders, city staff, and our colleagues to make sure that I come to a win-win solution. So I hope you vote for me on November 8th, if not earlier. Thank you.
Jeff Greenfield.
Thank you. I want to explain why I was late before I get into my closing remarks. You know, a happy wife is a happy life, and over 2 weeks ago, you know, the council forum was going to be last night. And I promised my wife that I would be available to take her for a medical procedure and to be able to get her home, get her settled. And I assured her that there was no conflict if she made the appointment for later this afternoon. And then we moved everything to tonight. So I apologize. I take it very seriously, but that was something that couldn't be helped. You know, elections are like a performance evaluation. You are looking at the record of folks who have been in office and evaluating them on what they said they were going to do versus what they've been able to do over the last 2 years. I would encourage all of you, as we're out and we're thinking about who we want as our next council, has everyone done what they said they would do? And then I think when you look at the folks who were the challengers, and I put myself in that category, obviously, what experience do we have? Do we have the ability to move the city forward in difficult times, to continue to be creative, to be thoughtful about what it's going to take to make this a continued great place to live and raise a family? I've lived here all my life. We're raising our family here. I'm excited to stand before you. Like Solim, I'd love for you to not vote often, but vote early or up through November 8th. So thank you for being here tonight, and I thank you for the opportunity to be able to stand before you.
Thank you. Anna Renner.
thank you all for being here, and thank you for the school board candidates for sitting through all this. I'm running because I just hear over and over again my voice isn't being heard. And I spent my whole life, whether it was taking care of my mom with Parkinson's disease, whether it's taking care of foster kids, whether it's taking care of my son, just taking care of people, listening to people. It's really not that hard. And I would say this because for the past 4 months, my husband and I have knocked on over 4,000 doors. And we have listened to you. And there's a clear direction, a clear frustration with many of the residents. They don't feel like you're being heard. There's nothing wrong with doing town halls. It gives us an opportunity to hear your voices. Do it early. Save the city money if it's a bad project, if it's an unwanted project. Come up with innovative ideas with you all. And instead of using for-profit consultants, our state universities do some of these studies for us for free since we are a small city. And we're a small city. We're not European countries where they have the infrastructure for cycling throughout the city. They literally have stops every so few kilometers to repair your bike, to help you out. We're not a European city. We are not Falls Church where the metro is within walking or biking distance. We're not Arlington where the employers are within 2 to 5 miles. People move out here for some land, for some peace and quiet, for less traffic, less gridlock. And that's what the council should be listening to. If we're bringing in a development, let's listen to you all and consider the size and scope. Many of the aging residents have told me their frustration. There's nowhere for them. And we need to keep their facilities funded, and we need to make sure our children are getting funding too. And lastly, what I was trying to say earlier is our law enforcement and fire. I'm so grateful that the city considered their proposal of doing the STEP program, which means that they get to a higher pay rate earlier in their career, so that way we don't lose them to Fairfax County and Amazon. That's why we have a problem. We have a hiring problem in our law enforcement, because once they have 10 years of experience, Amazon poaches them. And that's one of the biggest problems we have. Thank you for your time. Vote for number 8, Anna Renner, on November 8th or earlier.
Craig Salewski.
Well, I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. This sort of engagement with the community is what I think a lot of us were talking about earlier, that it's the people like you that are engaged. One of the things I've enjoyed the most, is my first time running, like I said earlier, has been going out and knocking on doors and meeting people. I have heard the same exact thing, that people are concerned that their voices are not heard, or possibly that they are heard and just not listened to. And that's one of the reasons I got involved also. So I do want to thank all of you for coming out, because it is being engaged, it is important. I wanted to ask for your support on this. We need to have some new voices throughout. We have some financial times that I'm concerned about with a turnaround, inflation, things like that. I think we need to take another look at where and how we're spending our money, or your money, and reevaluate some of the things that are going on. Like I said, I do agree with some of the plans that the council has pushed through. It just may now need time to take a look at it and make sure that those are still financially sound and reasonable. So I am here, hopefully, to be a voice of reason and financial responsibility. I'm here asking for your support, and I'm hoping that if elected, I can earn your trust. So thank you.
Tom Ross.
I would like to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. This represents the best we have in the city of Fairfax, which is rich, honest, open community dialogue. And that has taken place not just tonight, but throughout our history as a community. We come together, we respect one another, and we discuss the issues openly and honestly. We may disagree, but we try to reach a consensus, and I think in most cases we've done that. We are living in very exciting times. Our community has right now the best fiscal capability and capacity of any time in my life in this city. We are AAA bond rated. We have exceptional fiscal management by our city staff and I think by this city council. It results in the second lowest residential property tax in Northern Virginia. And we've been able to do that because we have a strong business community that we support, we sustain. We need to continue to do that for the future. You need experienced voices on council, as well as a lot of the new ideas that we've talked about tonight. We need to remember that in the end, you are trusting your tax dollars that you have earned to your elected officials who will make decisions on your behalf. Sometimes you may disagree with those. We study them very carefully. We reach decisions based on our experience working in the community. As I mentioned, I have served in this community for 42 years in a variety of different capacities. This is my hometown. It's a place I love and respect, and I believe in my experience with the National Park Service as a volunteer in the community brings those resources to the table in a way that is really rich for all of you. I hope you will consider supporting me on November 8th. Vote early if you can. Don't vote more than once, but please vote. It's a democratic fundamental principle that we must maintain and protect for the future. Thank you.
John Staley?
Well, thank you all for coming out tonight. I said it in the last forum, I want to say it again. We're losing over a century of service this election. I mean, Mayor Meyer, Councilmember Miller, and the school members here are retiring. So it is big shoes to fill coming forward here. That information is shared, that history of where we're at and where we're headed is very, very important. So on November 8th, you're going to pick your team. And apparently you're going to do it before November 8th, so keep that in mind. You can vote early in that particular space. So decide who you want on that team, because there will be 6 council members. And so my strongest urging to you all is find the 6 people you want to be on that team. Continue to have those conversations, because then you're going to ask us on November 9th to govern. You're going to need a team that's going to be agile, going to be able to communicate with one another, and we're going to have things that come to us that we have not even begun to expect today. And that's really what matters for us to be successful in the future. The partnership with the 5 people sitting down there, and how about that? You're going to have 5 women on the school board. That's going to be fantastic, awesome, and should be expected in the future. That should not be an anomaly. Working with them to set the future state for our schools is absolutely critical. And like you've heard today, fiscal management is going to be very, very important. Making sure we maintain our AAA bond rating, our investing for the future, is what this council has done, councils before it have done, and I hope on November 8th I'll have a chance to continue to do. So thank you for coming out. Find us afterwards, and I'm number 2 on the ballot, so don't forget to check that second box down. Thank you much.
Billy Bates?
My fellow candidate mentioned the importance of being able to go up to a candidate and find out what their position is on development or other local issues. And I just want to mention that the number one reason people say that they're supporting me is because they say that I have by far the most comprehensive, detailed, specific, and progressive platform of any candidate in this race. I am completely upfront with what I want to do for the city and how I want to do it. And it's very important to know where candidates stand on the issues, and I hope that you'll all stay informed and make the best decisions for who's going to bring the city forward. And I've lived in Fairfax City all my life, and my family's continuously been here since the late 50s, and obviously life happens sometimes, but I really don't have any intention of ever leaving Fairfax, and I want to live here all my life, and I love this place more than anywhere else, and can't see myself moving anywhere or living anywhere else, and I hope that you all consider voting for me, and together we can make a difference. Thank you.
Kate Doyle-Feingold?
I've said it before in the past, one of my biggest priorities is making sure that we can sort of switch the process around so residents are engaged early and often, as opposed to at the end of the process. Ensuring that the process is more transparent and that your leadership is responsive to your emails and questions and concerns, again, early on in the process. Big priorities of mine are guiding development and developers so that we're protecting our green spaces, our environment more. Making sure we have some compromises and we're negotiating in a little bit stronger of a position so that we can protect the community that we have, the small town feel, and also ensuring that we're supporting our local businesses as they go through this tough time also, because they're a big part of what makes Fairfax City so vibrant. Being able to walk into the downtown area or other parts of the city and visit local businesses is really important and a big part of our city. So my name's Kate Doyle-Feingold, and I hope that I can earn your vote.
Joseph Hartman.
All right, great, thank you. There's a saying that goes that you never have to wonder whether someone is a United States Marine, because if you talk to them for 5 minutes or more, they will tell you. So I am a Marine veteran, and I'll just put that out there for whatever that's worth. I have 3 adult children who were all born and raised here in Fairfax City, all graduates of Fairfax High School. My oldest daughter is in the United States Air Force. My other daughter is a graduate of Mary Washington University, and my son is currently serving as a United States Marine. And so a family of service or a history of service is something that I hold very dear to me, and being of service to you here in the city is a part of actually who I am. So whether I'm reelected or not, I will continue to serve in some form or another, but I hope you do reelect me. Because being passionate about Fairfax City is really all about making Fairfax City a better place for us today and also for our children in the future. My campaign slogan, for whatever it's worth, is called Celebrating Our Neighborly Small Town Charm. And it really is, to me, an encapsulation of what Fairfax City is and what makes us special, which is our neighborhoods and the people who live there. And so it's my objective in a second term, if I'm granted one, to be able to continue that process over the next couple of years. So when you're going into the ballot box, I've said this before, but it also bears repeating. When you go into the ballot box, take a look at your hand. You have 5 fingers, and I'm number 5 on the ballot, okay? So just make sure you look at that and go ahead and check box number 5. Thank you all for your time tonight.
Before we hear our closing statements from our mayoral candidates, I do want to give our school board, our candidates for school board one more chance to give their closing statements. I know I did not address any specific questions to them. There were a lot of broad questions offered in relation to schools. So I ask, as you give your closing statements, that you please address literacy, access to books, and arts education, and how you feel about all those topics and other priorities within our schools. I know that's rather broad. Good luck. Okay. There were a lot. People are very passionate about education, and I'm sure they will let you know that in the future as well. I say that as a public school teacher myself. But a lot of questions were asked in relation to what you feel are priorities in our schools, specifically relating to literacy, access to books, and the value of arts education. So in your closing statements, if you're able to address any of those topics, that would be helpful to quite a few questions. And we'll start this time with Rachel McQuillan. You're the lucky person. Okay, go ahead.
I am Rachel McQuillan. If I am elected, I will work very hard to ensure the best possible resources and opportunities for our children, period. That's it. I am a huge advocate of the arts. I was in the National Art Honor Society all through high school. I planned to go to college for arts. That changed really quick. I'm actually a student at George Mason University as well. I'm a non-traditional student, and I'm in the marketing department at working in the school business to get my degree in marketing. Sorry, that question really threw me off. We were told we'd have 30 seconds for our closing, so I'm trying to cover a lot here. But what I want to make sure is that we are accessible to everyone in the community. If I'm elected, I want to give every student and parent a voice, and I will fight hard for your children to make sure that they have all of the resources and opportunities that they deserve. Thank you.
Carolyn Pitches?
Okay. So first, it's incredibly important that we continue to provide modern, innovative learning spaces for our students that are also safe and secure. It's also incredibly important that we support professional development for our teachers, because that's how we can ensure that our students are exposed to best practices in education. I think we have the arts pretty well covered. Fairfax High School has an academy focused on the arts. Thank you. We have great programming there. The elementary schools all have after-school programming that also includes arts and music. We have orchestra, band, similarly at the middle school. What else? Books, okay. Books. So we have librarians in our schools that have gone to school specifically to be trained to work with committees of parents, faculty, and students, and with their education to be able to choose books that are appropriate for our schools. Not everybody wants to read all the books that we have, but we need to have a choice for students. That being said, if there are any questions about books, if somebody is not happy with a book, we have an appeals process and it goes to a committee. And then if you are unhappy with that decision, you can appeal that decision. So I think, I'm trying to think, did I cover most of that?
Hit the three.
Okay, all right. So anyway, it's been a great privilege to serve for the last 12 and a half years, and with your support, hopefully we can continue this work, supporting our schools and students.
Stacy Hall.
So Carolyn should have just gone first and answered for everybody. And this is honestly why she's sticking around for another term, because the four of us are learning. We don't know all the answers. We have to rely on Carolyn very heavily, but we will learn, we will work for it, we will figure it out, and we will serve you in the best way that we can. We will serve our students, we will serve our teachers, our faculty, our staff, our admin, all of them. And I think for all of us as PTA members and active board members previously, it's super important to us that we are those people for our schools. I want to be able to support all of the programs that we can. I want to be able to make sure that our schools are strong. I do support the current agreement with Fairfax County. I think that we could never offer any of the AAP or the arts or the music or any of the things that we offer if we were our own school system at this point in time. It's a question I get asked somewhat frequently, and I just think it's a really long time away if we ever wanted to consider it. Something else that people ask us is, what do I think about an all-women, all-white board? And I will tell you very, very strongly that we tried to find other diverse groups that we could help to sit on this board with us, to run on this board with us. We are not here because we're white women and that's like why we're here. We're here because we care about our kids, we care about all the things I said before, and we were the ones that were willing to step up at this point. So if you have other people that you would like to have work with us or continue on, committees and things like that, please send them our way. We are open for everybody and anybody that wants to be involved in their kids' education and just in the city in general. And I do want to thank Old Lee Hills and Cobbdale for having us. I am a Cobbdale resident, huge fan of there. And it's like I said with everything else, if you have a need or a question or something, for all of us, ask. And I hope that this conversation doesn't end tonight. I hope that once everyone is elected, if you don't like the way something is going or you have a question, that's what we're here for. That's why you elected us. We represent you, but we don't know how you feel unless you tell us. And I hope that we can try to have that conversation and continue to ask you how you feel. So, thank you.
Sarah Kelsey?
I would like to say, as a teacher, I have always looked at my students as if they are my own children. And being on the school board, I'll look at the students as if they're my own children. I want my children to succeed and have the best in education, and I feel the same way for every child that is in our school system. We want what's best for them. As for the books, I think every child should have an opportunity to have a book. I know one thing we do at Providence that I like to see have done at other schools is when we do our book fair, we try to use that money that we raise at it and buy books for those kids that can't afford the books at the book fair, so that everybody has that opportunity to have a book in their home so that they are able to read and learn to read. Because most kids, just to see their face light up when they've read a new word for the first time, that's something that all teachers would love to see. And I know I would love to have our teachers succeed. And to do that, we need to give them some extra support. And so I know I would like to be a voice for the teachers, for the parents, for the students as well on our board. I agree with what these ladies have said, though. The arts is very important. It helps our children express themselves in ways that some of them cannot, that some students may struggle with their vocabulary, but they are awesome at playing orchestra. And that gives them the confidence they need to succeed in other areas as well. So I feel like we should definitely keep the arts and support as many programs as we can have with those. Thank you. Oh wait, I feel like I should say I'm number 3, because all of them have set their numbers.
Hamid Hickman.
Okay, hi, I'm Amita Hickman. Sorry, I'm freezing, so if I drop this mic, it's because my hands are frozen over here. First off, I want to thank Cobbdale and Oldley Hills. I am a Oldley Hills resident, so I feel very partial and I appreciate the work that went into tonight. I also really want to thank Amy. I think that was a very hard position and you spoke the whole time. For those who know me, that was the longest I've gone without speaking. So I have lots to put into my 90 seconds, which I've used up already. First off, like the women have said, I am here for the children and for the teachers and for you to hear what you have to say. I think one of the most important things as city school board members is to have a relationship with the Fairfax County School Board members and to have a voice, to be able to listen to the concerns of our own community and then bring that to the city, to the county school board as well. When it comes to literacy and the arts, we had the opportunity, some of us were at the school board work session this week where there was a presentation regarding literacy and how that pedagogy of learning language arts is changing, learning how to read is changing in K through 3. Daniel's Run was one of the trial programs to do this, trial schools to do this program. It's now continuing throughout the county. These are things that I think people need to hear. And if you're not at that meeting, which nobody was at that meeting, you don't know that information. So I see it as my responsibility as a school board member to be sharing that information in a way that is digestible for those who might not know all the keywords, all the buzzwords behind it, but have an understanding of what your children or your grandchildren are being taught and how they are being taught that information. Lastly, 2 more things. I do want to say there's been a lot of support here tonight from the council members in regards to renovations, and these renovations don't need to happen overnight, but they need to happen in the next couple of years. I have 2 10-year-olds who by the time that they are in Fairfax High School are going to need, we should be seeing renovations in the elementary schools, in the middle school, and the high school. So I want to make sure that happens with safety being our #1 priority for when you walk into a school. And I'm just going to put in a plug for the arts. Go see the Stinky Cheese Man at Katherine Johnson, and you will get a chance to see how amazing our programs really are, even at the age of middle school. And at the high school. I'm partial to the other one because my son's in it.
Thank you, school board candidates. And finally, our closing statements from our 2 mayoral candidates. We start with Sang Yi.
Thank you all for being here tonight and spending your evening to hear us out. I want to also thank you for the honor and privilege of having served you on the city council for the last 4 years. It's been an incredible experience and learned a lot. And frankly, I think I've been a very diligent and thorough member on the city council, and that's what I hope to bring to the table if you elect me as mayor. And I'll continue to focus on affordability issues. I'll continue to focus on sensible development. And I'll make sure that our schools and our public safety are fully invested so that our children and our well-being is taken care of here. I think one of the things that I realize about the city of Fairfax, whether you've lived here your whole life or whether you're new here, this is a friendly city. This is not an in-your-face kind of place. This is a place where people are neighborly, and I want to let you know that in that same spirit, if elected mayor, I'll bring that to City Hall and also represent you in that same spirit regionally. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Catherine Reed.
Thank you for everyone for coming tonight. Thank you, Amy. Thank you for everyone who has sat through this whole thing. I think one of the biggest questions about my candidacy is how I'm coming to be mayor without having gone through all the steps all the other mayors have gone through. We've always had May elections. People have served on boards and commissions. People have served on city council, and then they become mayor. And I understand that that is a path to being mayor of this city. I would ask you to consider maybe it's not the only path. I ran for city council 10 years ago and did not win a seat. I was invited to put myself forward for the EDA, and the city council declined to put me on the EDA. So I've spent the last decade putting my efforts in advocacy. I have worked with autism insurance reform. I have worked with dyslexic parents. I have worked with the Virginia Council of Nurse Practitioners for their expanded scope of practice. I have worked in the county. I realize there may be people in this room who don't know me very well, but there are people in Northern Virginia who know me very well in every county, Fairfax, Loudoun, and Arlington. And there are people in the Virginia General Assembly down in Richmond who know me very well, because I go there and I advocate for things like making sure HOAs can't prohibit home-based child care in subdivisions. I go down and I testify. I work with small organizations, I work with larger organizations, but I have put my life, my energy, my effort, and my thoughts into improving this world, into leaving this world a better place than I found it. I have served on the board of Equality Virginia because I am a proud, passionate champion of the LGBTQ community, and I have been all my life. I served with NARAL Pro-Choice Virginia because I believe that women should have dominion over their own bodies and access to their own reproductive health care choices. Those things matter to me. And I will continue to do those things. And I hope you will consider choosing me for your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. This concludes our candidate forum for this evening. All the candidates are available after the forum for respectful conversations. Please note that all questions submitted today will be typed up and given to the candidates so they can know your concerns and questions. This will also let them know the issues that are on your minds and allow them an opportunity to address some of your questions in other formats available if they so desire. Thank you for your time this evening. We hope this forum helps you make an informed decision in your voting because local government matters. We hope this helps spark conversations with your neighbors. Please vote on or before November 8th, and please also encourage all of your neighbors to vote. Thank you. Have a good night.